Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Women Leaders. Today, I'm really excited to welcome to the show my friend and physician leader, Dr. Tolulope Olabintan. Dr. Olabintan, also known as Dr. O, as she's fondly called by her patients, is the founder and CEO of Livingspring Family Medical Center in Mansfield, Texas, a health hub where people are helped to live long and well. She is a life enthusiast, a Christian, a mum, and a wife who enjoys good cuisine and can't get enough of the colors teal and orange, as evidenced by her beautiful top that she's wearing there. Dr. Olabintan is passionate about improving the quality and quantity of life of everyone she serves. Dr. Olabintan also wears other hats. She's a speaker, a mentor, and a writer. Her other hobbies include hosting, dancing, and interior decor. You can find her on various social media platforms, probably most often as Livingspring Medicals on Facebook and Dr. Olabintan on Instagram, and I'll put those links in the show notes. What an incredible mission, and I think it's fair to say that Dr. Olabintan is leading the way with inspiration. So without further ado, let's meet Dr. Tolulope Olabintan. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tolu. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and speak to the show's audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adam, for having me here. I am honored and delighted.
I just can't stop smiling when I look at you, but we're like that, aren't we, when we work together? I love it. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. So in your own words, Dr. Tolu, please would you tell the audience a bit more about yourself, including what your current work roles are and what leadership positions you currently hold or have held in the past, please?
All right. So as you introduced, I am the CEO, founder of Livingspring Family Medical Center. I see myself as currently serving as the leader there and as the mentor to my team. As far as positions I've held before, I was chief resident in residency many moons ago. I also serve as a board member on different platforms, Esperanza Health in Philadelphia. I also serve on the board of the Texas Hospital Liaison Group here in Mansfield, Texas. I also mentor a group of young women in a Christian setting. I also mentor teenagers also in a Christian setting. So I do kind of play a leadership role in different areas. And currently, the one that's taking most of my time, honestly, is the clinic here in Mansfield, Texas. We have a team of about 14 staff members. So it's, as you can imagine, it's pretty busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a variety of leadership roles you hold, both medical, clinical, non-clinical, non-medical, kind of in the community, church related, absolutely fantastic. So some really broad experience in different arenas that you can share with us. So thanks for telling us all about that.
No problem.
So how would you term your personal leadership style? And it doesn't have to be according to the formal categories, but what's your approach in leadership?
I'll be honest with you, I'm familiar with the 4 types, and I'm not sure I can say I fit into one, but I would say my model, the ones that the one I tend to try to follow is what I'll call servant leadership. So by that, I mean, I exemplify what I want to see. All right. And in that, it's not I'm the authority or I can't do that, you do that. It's more, well, I serve however I'm needed. I am the leader, but I can still serve in this capacity, similar to what you're doing if I need to. I don't know if that makes sense. So,
yeah.
And a lot of times I tell my team members, I say, there's nothing that you should be too big to do or too important to do, because I've served as that example to you. When you guys have been busy, needed help up front, I've come up front to help, even when it was not my own practice. So I've done that through working with other people, because I want to exemplify what I want to see. So if I expect you to be patient with patients, I have to be patient with you. If I expect you to go a little bit over and beyond when it comes to extending grace to a difficult patient, I'm not saying take abuse, because there's a balance between that, but still make excuses for them, I exemplify that to you. Okay, so that way you can't call me out on not practicing what I preach. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that I admit to mistakes, but there's a down to earth approach that I take with leadership. Okay.
Yeah.
I exemplify what I want to see.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I want you to grow as a person, having worked with me. My mantra is, I want you, by virtue of having worked with me, alongside with me, whether my practice, not my practice, that you're a better version of yourself because of the interaction we've had. So it's almost like a life purpose for me. So that's the best way I could come up as far as terminology, servant leadership.
Yeah, no, I love that. Absolutely. You lead by example. You are, you're not above kind of rolling your sleeves up and getting your hands dirty and getting onto the shop floor. And that, lots and lots of staff respect that, don't they? I think they respect that kind of leadership so much. So yeah, no, I absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate that. So thank you for sharing that. So you've multiple leadership roles and at different stages, and you were chief resident, and I think I don't want to pick on any particular roles, but there are quite a few. But it'd be interesting to know how you kind of became chief resident, and maybe how you became CEO of your own organization, if you don't mind sharing those journeys.
It's so interesting. As far as chief residency, I enjoy teaching. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like, oh, guess what I know? I can teach you so you don't have to wait till I did to learn what you should have learned earlier, that kind of thing. So there was a passion about teaching patience. And I think one of my strengths is being relatable. I'm able to meet people where they are and kind of help bring them up to where they should be in a sense, or get better or whatever. And so during residency, I guess that was something that they noticed, and they asked if I would be chief. And I said, well, I'm sure, but of course, ask the group, do they want me to be chief? And it was unanimous. I was chief, and I was like, oh my God, I cried. I was like, oh my goodness, all right, chief then, okay. And I was challenged by the position. One of the things I learned during that, though, was sometimes in leadership, you will hurt feelings. You will hurt feelings. I learned one of the toughest things, or one of my life's toughest lessons in residency. I had a very good friend, and what I had to do also was make the schedule. Right, mm-hmm. I had to make the schedule of how many calls you would have, and of course, when was the best time to be on call? On Thursday, right? So you'd be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, everyone covered at that spot. But what I did different that year was I would count to make sure everyone got equal amounts of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because Saturday was the worst call because you essentially worked the whole time. And so I had a friend, and it was, towards the end of residency, and, the last month, that's the month before you graduate and you're out. So you're like, whatever. And nobody typically wants to do that. And so when we had done the numbers, it was my very good friend who had the lowest. And so he would have to be the one on call that month. And he was upset. The previous years, they've done it by casting lots, to see who would. And I thought that was unfair. I'm like, what if the person was always stuck? So I said, no, it should be everyone. And then he got really upset. And then I showed him the tally. I had the most Sundays. I had the most Saturdays, and I had the least Thursdays. So I tried to show him, like, look, you see this? He's like, that's your problem. If you want to screw yourself, that's on you. But it's not my fault. But I told him, stepping out of the friendship role, in all fairness to the team, it cost me my friendship. But I have learned that you have to, as a leader, sometimes you have to make tough decisions that benefits the whole group, not just you. And so we're very good friends, but I lost that friendship for that. No regrets though, but it was a lesson early in life that, principle, living by principle, living by integrity is very, very important. Sometimes it will cost you, and it is what it is.
Wow. Gosh, that's quite a story. Obviously, hugely more of a reflection on him and the value of the friendship than it was on you. I mean, you, as you said, were leading by integrity. You were taking the hit. You had the most on calls, but wow, for it to come down to that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, what a what a lesson. But yeah, again, you know, like as you described before, leading by example. You know, it's like, well, you know, I'm happy to take the hit, and I've taken the lion's share of the hit. So you have to be willing to take some hits, albeit less so than yeah. Thank you. That's a good, very good lesson there. And yeah, tell us a bit about how you became CEO of your own clinic. Then it's exciting.
All right. So I know it sounds being a chief resident, it would automatically translate to leadership roles everywhere. I'll be honest with you, after residency, I was good. I did not want any, being a doctor was just enough. I could lead with my patients, teach them what to do. That was good. I didn't think earlier on that I would open a practice, but there were certain clues that were starting to point to that this was something I would do. And I tried to evade them. I always thought, maybe, you know how you're in your 20s, you see maybe I'm in my 40s, and then when you're 30s, you see maybe when you're in your 50s, and then when you're 40s, you think maybe in your 60s. So when it dawned on me that that's something that I was called to do, either because there was a passion that I had just taking care of people, and sometimes I felt a little restrained where I worked, how I expressed that, you know, either there were time constraints, or I had to see this many, patients this many times, or, oh, we don't do that here. We just take care of, this, we don't address the emotional side. We refer them out to just 10 different people, but I'll try to address them, but I wasn't allowed the time. I knew that there was something more that I could offer. But the burden of responsibility was something that scared me. And I did not want to do it. However, COVID happened. I lost a few friends. I won't say I had a lot more time to reflect, but I was forced into what I call inflection, where I had to reflect inward and say, okay, what am I called to do? I might as well do it. I might as well do it now, because I don't know how much time I'm guaranteed.
Yeah.
So COVID was a big eye opener. You know, people who had done what they were supposed to do and had left, had, died or passed or whatever. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I afraid of? Like, I need to live out my calling. And I had this nudge in my heart for a long time. And I will be honest with you, was listening to there are two things. There was a Bible verse. It was David in Psalms. He says, when I'm afraid, I'll trust you. I think Psalm 58. When I'm afraid, I'll trust you. So here's David, who's known to slay the Goliath, but he's saying, I'm afraid and I'll trust you. I'm like, oh, so you don't need to not be afraid to do what you're supposed to do. So ding, ding, ding. That was light bulb moment number one. And number two, I had a friend who introduced me to Entry MD, Dr. Una's group. I believe you had her on your show. And she said, do it afraid. And I was like that was just reemphasizing what had just come to me as an epiphany, or if you call it. And I said, oh my goodness, I can do it scared. So I don't need to be in a state of zen, like I am so calm right now, I can take on the world. No, I can be scared and do it. And it was in that moment that nudge, that heaviness in my heart, that like feeling that I couldn't quite reason out, there was a calm. There was like, oh, that's what that was. Now, of course, there were new trepidations and new, but in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, that's it. That's it. And I want to say this real quick. You don't have to always know what you're supposed to do in its specificity at an early point in time. I'm almost 40. And it took, after 13 years of medical school residency, to come to this conclusion. Some people find that out when they're 60. It's okay. That's too late. Some people started right after residency, opened their practice. I don't know how the heck they did that and who would think of doing that, but they did. But I waited. And even some people who know me now, who knew me then, are shocked that I have a practice, because they knew I was like, oh no, that's not for me. Business, no, I'm good where I'm at. So, I came to this conclusion in the heat of the pandemic, and that was my timing. Okay, because sometimes there's oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I adding value? Start where you are. I have seen that all the experiences I've had, the bad, the good, the ones where I'm like, Lord, like, what the heck am I doing here? Like, why am I being treated like this? It all makes sense now because I can deal with a difficult patient. I can deal with a patient who doesn't like me because of my skin color. I can deal with a patient, like I've been through a lot, that where I'm at, I feel better equipped. If I started early, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, I just want to throw that real quick. Like it's okay not to know in specificity what to do, but and before you know it, I said we'll do it, and I joined the Interview Business School. I zoned in on a community, of like-minded people. I started to try to up-level my mindset because I realized that it was a couple of mindset hacks, I would say, that got me to accepting the challenge of living out what I'm supposed to do. Right.
Yeah.
So I realized that, oh my goodness, I got to put more investment into my thought process, into my mindsets. And here we are. Livingspring has been open since July of 2021. And we're here.
Congratulations. And I mean, obviously I was your classmate, I think, when you were opening. It's very exciting times. And I mean, as was referring to Dr. Una, but as she says, you're exactly where you're meant to be at that time, aren't you? I'm 46, I'm 47 in July, and I've only since January kind of set up my website, having dithered and prevaricated for a couple of years, and just, got around to launching the podcast, having had the idea about it almost 3 years ago, because of fear, but better late than never, isn't it? It's better late than never. And you're right, the pandemic kind of made us look at things through a different lens. It's like, who would have thought that was going to happen? That was unpredictable. Life could, be unpredictably shortened. So you just got to do it, huh? Grasp the nettle. Yeah, seize the day. Awesome. Thank you. Great lessons there. All right. So were there any doctors senior to you, female or male, that kind of helped you, lifted you as they rose? Or
oh yes, definitely. Now, so specifically to doctors, I'll start out with Dr. Duncan. She was a family medicine physician during residency that introduced me to the world of family medicine. I saw her see a patient in their 80s, the man's wife, his kids, grandkids, and was about to see the great grandchild. And she was their doctor. And I was so amazed, like, oh my goodness, you can impact the whole family. Yeah. So I want to give her a shout out because she really inspired me. She loved what she did. And, I saw that as something that I could possibly do as well. I had a physician, Dr. Haraway Smith, when I did my surgical OB fellowship in Memphis. She was a tough trainer, but there was something she said to me, because I remember going to her saying, like I felt like she hated me because she was particularly tough on me. And she said, oh my goodness, no, I see so much potential in you and I'm trying to bring it out. I was just like, oh, okay. But honestly, I was just like, oh my God, this woman hates me. Like she did not, like, what the? And she was like, no, I see so much potential in you. I could, so she wanted to bring it out. I don't want to go into detail of some of the things she would have me do in the operating table as far as speed and accuracy and, but I look back and I'm thankful for what she did and how she inspired me and her style. I think I needed it for that phase in my life. And of course, I have to give out a shout out to Dr. Una. She has been a tremendous blessing to me, and she inspires me not just by, in the school, but just the life she lives out. The example, she's a living example of what she preaches. So definitely, Dr. Una, yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. And well, similarly yourself, but you've been leading by example and living the way you want others to kind of follow that example for a long time. It sounds like many years before you joined the business school. So it's let's not credit all of these external external mentors. You had a lot of amazing leadership traits way before that.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to go down any kind of like dark rabbit holes, but the contrast in this show is that obviously my guests had challenges, and hopefully our listeners can learn from the challenges that the guests have had and how they've navigated them. So are there any kind of particular challenges on your leadership journey that you faced that quite prominent, that you don't mind talking about, that you can describe how you coped with and moved past them?
Oh yes. I mean, challenges, one, in how I saw myself. It's so interesting. It's based on that premise that I now, when I'm celebrating people's birthdays, I tell them what they mean to me and how much of a blessing they are, so they know the value that they add in real time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the burial ground is when people are told how awesome and how much they impacted them when they're gone, and then you're given a eulogy, whatever the phrase is called. I'm sorry, but if people really had an idea the impact that they make because people told them, I think the world would be a much better place. I struggled personally with how I saw myself, my background, and coming here, and being told certain things I wasn't used to growing up, my skin color, or, being of African descent, or whatever, and it shook me because I grew up in a loving home. I felt I could take on the world. It didn't matter the fact that we grew up relatively, poor to, not too poor, but we were okay. We're happy. And so coming to hear people say things that were very much unlike what I've been told was a big, big struggle. And then there was the accent, and, it was obvious I was foreign, and different things. So I didn't realize how much of that had affected me till I went, I became an attendant, I think. And, I think someone had not wanted to see me because they saw, that I wasn't, I was my color, I guess. And that hurt, I'll be honest with you. And, someone made a comment and I just ignored, and I just said, you know what, that's okay. And I remember my nurse came to me and said, how do you still thrive, or how do you still do what you're doing, even with how you're treated? And I told her that sometimes I go to the bathroom downstairs and I self-talk. I look myself in the mirror. I remind myself what God says about me. So I'll stand there and psych myself up. And then I have people that I can call and tell them I'm having a rough day. And he would tell me, oh my God, come on, remember who you are, whose you are. You're awesome. So I'll go do that and then come back upstairs. And then one of the things, my name, Tolulope, means to God be the glory. So when someone calls me something else, derogatory, I'm like, I don't know who they're talking about, because that's not who I was named. So that's how I explained it to her. So that was one of the things I had to, I thought I was doing a good job, but, a repeat happened with opening my practice. I guess the person hadn't looked at the website, and then walked in to see me and didn't expect the Olabintan they saw. And so it brought me back. But one of the things I was able to do was voice that in the group that I was able to. It was a group of women. It was the entry MD class, I'll be honest with you. And I told them that this is something I was struggling with. And the support that came through, and even one-on-one encouragement from Dr. It was amazing. And so one of the things that I've learned to not do is, in a safe place, I should share my vulnerability. It's not everywhere you can, but you got to find that space where you can really be real with what those, call them demons, what they are. So someone can help you break through them.
Mm.
You know, we keep them in, we think, and we don't understand that those are limiting beliefs, So really addressing your limiting beliefs is key.
Mm.
So those were challenges,
Yeah.
those the mental part was big. And then of course, in the middle of a pandemic, trying to open a practice. I mean, who does that? Who does that? It was in that I learned the power of coaching. I used to think coaching was frou-frou. That's just, you can coach. Yeah, I'm a coach. You're a coach. Yeah, we're coaches. Yeah, you coach. It just seemed like a lingo. But you can learn from people who have gone ahead of you, so that you don't have to, you kind of get a fast track on that, right? You don't have to learn the hard way through each phase of life. You can learn from people who have gone ahead of you, who've mastered, ahead of you, and who exemplify that, right? You see them, you see what they've done. And so follow them.
Yeah.
Follow them, be their group, see what they're doing, learn from them. Don't just, oh yeah, they think they're all that. No, man, there's something about this person. That's what led me to somebody that I saw their growth. I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to follow, not click. No, I'm going to follow them. I see something. They're emerging. I want to see what they're doing and push myself further past my comfort zone. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. Plenty. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, you had challenges. Sounds like quite a lot of racial discrimination, from patients. And so were you born overseas and then moved to the US?
Yeah.
No, how old were you when you moved?
I was 15.
15, right? Okay, yeah. And they, obviously were your demons, I in a way, but the way you've described how you coped with them, move past them, or I mean, as much as we can, these things keep, do come up again, don't they? And we just have to kind of reinforce the things that we do. But I've written down a few things here. So the self-talk, kind of like telling yourself, on your own in a private place, telling yourself that this, this is, you don't need to be affected by this kind of thing. Having a good, strong support network of family and friends who will just say, what's that? Why are you listening to that one person? Like, we all know you're absolutely incredible. Like, that's just rubbish. Just ignore that. Reminding yourself who you are. And I like that, the meaning of your name. Who's this person they're talking about saying you're rubbish, or, I don't want to see you just because your name or your accent or the color of your skin. No, I don't recognize that person that you're talking about. I love that. Dealing with limiting beliefs. Yeah, I mean, we're all riddled with those, aren't we? But yeah, exactly. Kind of like dealing with that, the inner critic that leads to limiting beliefs, and turning them around, reframing them, turning them into power beliefs, and some sort of positive psychology stuff, confidence and mindset stuff. And obviously that all ties in with coaching and being coached, and learning from the examples of people who've and not. I like that, not being. It's very easy, isn't it, to be envious or jealous of people who look like they're doing really well, but you're like the opposite. You're like, they're doing really well. I want to learn how to do what they're doing and kind of thrive like they are. And that's positive.
And even when the temptation comes to be jealous, you step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Work on that belief and then dive back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've struggled with that too. I'm not gonna lie, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying hearing you say that, because I work with clients, in the workplace bullying arena, who are bullied by people who have role modeled on bad examples of leadership. Yeah. And it's lovely to hear you kind of like talk about role modeling in a really positive way like that. So thank you. That's a good reminder to me, and a good lesson for everyone, I think. Fantastic. So, well, in addition to that excellent advice around how to navigate through those challenges that you've described, do you have any other advice for our listeners on how to become strong and kind leaders? Because I very much see you as a strong, kind person and leader. So how might people become like you?
Hmm. I'll say the biggest thing, and I've said this quite a few times before, is to mind your surround sound. I think there's one thing I can say, like, what are things that speak into your life? What are things that influence how you think? You know, guard that space, your mental space, like your space of influence, like where, like how you're influenced, because they can affect your outlook and outcome in life. So you know, in different phases of my life, I've had to tune out some noises, tune out some peoples, tune out some comments, tune out some critics. They're not constructive, so that I can really focus on what I'm supposed to do for that time, for that season. I'll give an example. When I was working on opening the practice, there were certain people I couldn't tell, because I knew that they were balloon poppers.
Yeah.
To be, they wouldn't necessarily tell you, oh, well, watch out for this, be careful. It was like, oh, what if worst case scenario? What if? So I didn't tell them till it was pretty set.
Yeah.
And they actually were surprised, like, oh my goodness, I thought we're close. I was like, yeah. And I told them, I said, I thought for that season you would have discouraged me, so I didn't need to hear from you. Now, of course, you don't want psychopaths. You don't want people who would just be like, yeah, you're going to jump in that fire? Go ahead. I got you. You could do it. No, you want people who will tell you the truth, you know, and love, in a way that it's not like chopping your head off while trying to remove a smudge on your chin, you know? So, you know, so I had to consciously, you know, ignore certain phone calls or texts as opposed to be on the phone with them, you know, because I needed to really focus, because I had enough challenges with my own. So I would say that's very, very important, your influence, because you become what you listen to, honestly, a lot. Like your mindset is a product of what you listen to, and so your mindset influences who you are, and so it's a chain reaction. So you gotta watch it from the bottom. There's certain things I wouldn't watch. There's certain things I won't listen to. There's certain conversations I wouldn't entertain for too long, and I won't be rude. I just change it to something more constructive. And just
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, so tuning out that background noise, and just being kind of hyper focused, and not listening to that the naysayers, and being selective with contact with those sorts of people. They say we're a function of the 5 people that we're closest to, or something like that, isn't it? Kind of a melange of those people, but even people on the fringe can have an influence on the way we feel, can't they? Sometimes quite deeply. So that's great advice. Kept you on that kind of strong and as you say, the kindness aspect of it is, you don't just want people who are, I mean, you know, you want people in your corner, you want people who've got your back and they're cheering you on, but as you say, not to the point of sycophancy, and you need them to be constructively critical with kindness and love. I agree. That's exactly the kind of people you want to be surrounding yourself with. So thank you. So have you kept anything in reserve? Do you have any take home messages on leadership for our listeners?
I would say this: be true to who you are and own your gift. When I was going to look for the slogan or the catchphrase for Livingspring Family Medical Center, all that came to me were the words care, comma, sincerely, exclamation point. Now it seemed silly, seemed like frou-frou, like care, sincerely. I wanted something like where you come and you get a dynamic, state-of-the-art type medical care, like something, you know, like you know what I mean, something really, really fancy. But that's all I got. Care, sincerely. I ran it by people who I knew cared about me, and they thought it was a little cheesy too. But I couldn't shake the nudge that, you know what, that's what I'm about. Just letting people know they're cared for. It doesn't mean I have all the answers. It just means, and I've seen it over and over again, that when people feel they're cared for, they do better. Even if the outcome is terminal, they do better even through that, because they feel sincerely cared for. And I know that's a gift I have. So I held on to it. And now, is the resonating theme at the clinic. They feel cared for. They feel like she cares. They feel that the team member cares. So it wouldn't make sense sometimes, as long as it's goodly, it adds value to other people in addition to yourself, run with it. You just need to find the people who would embrace that vision with you. Sometimes that's the difficult part, but if it's what you're meant to do, it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's that phrase, very simple, pithy, concise phrase, but it says it all. And the most important thing about that phrase, regardless of the words and regardless of people saying it sounded cheesy or whatever, which I don't think it does, is that it's authentic. It's authentic. It's genuine. That's it. Yeah. It sounds like that is you kind of living through your values in that phrase. Yep. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So what are you currently excited to be working on that you'd like to share with our listeners? What's going on, Dr. Tolu?
So right now we're pretty busy. So I'm working on balance.
Okay. So working on yourself, so the personal development. Yeah.
I'm working on balance and leveraging and delegating and
boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's where I'm at.
All that good stuff. Yeah. Yes. I mean, as you say, you do have lots of hats. Because you also have a show, you have a Facebook Live show as well, don't you? And is anything else happening kind of like non-medical, like outside of your practice?
Yes, like I said, I do some mentoring of young women.
Oh yeah.
So that is big. I like people to learn from my mistakes. Oh my goodness. That's a big passion project for me. So that's on the side too. Cool. I would say those are, but I'll be honest with you, the clinic has taken a lot of my time. So
it's enough. You're giving enough. Brilliant. So I mentioned in the intro that you're on Facebook as Livingspring Medicals and Dr. Olabintan on Instagram, and I'll put those and other handles that you have into the show notes. But any other ways that listeners could reach out to you, email or how do you prefer to be
email
contacted?
can be hello@livingspringmedicals.com.
Yeah. Cool. hello@livingspringmedicals.com. Brilliant. And well, I think, do you have any closing words that you'd like to share with the listeners?
This has been great, Dr. Adam. I really like what you do. I'm thankful to be on this show. I would say this though, that any leadership skills can be learned.
Yeah,
it's not like So I don't want people to put pressure on themselves like, oh well, she must be. No, it can be learned. I am an example of that. I want to normalize growth. That the way I believe the way God has made us, we can morph. It's amazing who we can become. So whatever it is you feel like that you're supposed to be doing, you could grow and learn into that position. So give yourself permission to, put yourself under the teachings or the leadership of people that you want to be like, or I'm not saying be exactly like them, but you've seen them kind of exemplify what it is you think you're supposed to do, and learn. It can be learned. Leadership skills can be learned. Yes.
Yeah. I completely agree. Thank you for that. I mean, I one of my first formal leadership roles, and as you know, us medics are not taught any leadership skills in medical school or during residency, and I was not a bad leader, as in I was not a bad boss, like a command and control authoritarian type person, but I wasn't particularly accessible or visible, and I learned about that quite quickly, and definitely worked on myself. And thankfully I had line manager who pointed that out to me in a nice way, actually. And I wasn't aware that all of the staff, like the secretarial staff and the clerical staff and people like that, that they looked up to the medical leaders, and when you kind of came into the room, it's big open plan office, you'd be like, oh, Dr. Harrison's here, I had no idea that people kind of like, and then I started to sit with them in hot desks near them, and then like when the big bosses come in, like the CEO, and say, oh, look, there's the CEO, and then you kind of realize, oh, right, okay, so it's how people see you, and it's like you have to be with them to realize that, so I, like you, am a very living example of learning leadership and changing mindset, developing a growth mindset, and becoming more emotionally intelligent. And yeah, brilliant. That's great. Thank you so much. So thank you again, from the bottom of my heart, for coming on the show, sharing all your wisdom and wonderful advice with us. It's been wonderful. I'm really grateful to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I should have you on my show soon, Dr. Adam. So we'll talk about that later. Yes. That'd
be lovely. Thank you everyone for listening. And until the next episode in 2 weeks, I wish you all health, happiness, and inspiring leadership. Take care.